Knowledge is said to increase in the last days, but that doesn't mean that all knowledge is the same or accurate. Now, come join us for a discussion about dinosaurs and Jesus on the way.
Welcome to The Way with Leslie King and Scott Grimmett.
See the ocean, how it sways in the sun.
Now, a lot of us work in fields where there's science. There's a lot of science and technology fields these days.
Right.
And of course, I work in education and I work with a lot of really smart people, PhDs, other advanced degrees. And whenever I start to share my faith, because there's not a whole lot of Christ followers on university campuses, even with the ones that are not super liberal.
Oh, that's too bad.
And so, yeah, it actually is kind of a lonely place for sure. But whenever I start to share my faith, and then we start to talk about different aspects, and talk about dinosaurs, for example, which is kind of salient to our topic today, the conversation always begins leading to 65 million years ago the dinosaurs lived, and and old Earth discussion, and all kinds of things like that. And I've really begun to realize over the years that it doesn't really matter how smart you are. Everybody brings to the table a bias about what they believe, and the fact that they can really argue some of these points with great conviction,
Right.
but bias nonetheless. So,
This one's going to be a lot of fun.
yeah, I think that this will be, because I think at some point, whether you're in education or where you're at, or whether you're a stay-at-home mom or you're doing something else, we all at some point have had to wrestle with this idea of the conflicting evidence of science, the age of the earth, dinosaurs, the prehistoric creatures, and all of that, and the fact that the Bible really is kind of silent on some of that. Not
Right.
completely, but some, I think.
It is. And there's misinformation on both sides.
Right.
Right. So it's just like, some people have tried way too hard to try to prove things that cannot be proved.
They cannot be proved.
And they kill the argument right there. So
Yeah,
it's going to be fun. We're
absolutely.
going to dig into this.
Yeah, and so we have different camps. We've got evolutionists and we have creationists. Now, evolutionists believe that there were essentially about 4 different eras that the Earth has gone through: Precambrian, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic. And we're currently in the Cenozoic phase, which started 65 million years ago.
Right.
And I'm describing right now who these folks are. I'm not saying that I believe in that. I'm not saying I don't believe in that. I'm approaching this just so we can kind of lay out the landscape.
That's fair.
Right? Absolutely. So, so the whole idea of the evolutionist is that the Earth was created about 4.6 billion years ago. At that time, there was no real diversity of life or anything. There were amoebas and there were planktons and there were things like that they believe provides evidence for the start of life on Earth. Okay,
Right.
so here we have the evolutionist, and over time, evolution has had 5 or 6 mass extinctions. When you have that happen, 80% of life or more is killed off. Those that remain got a foothold, grew back over another 100 million years, 300 million years, things like that. So there's a lot of really big numbers in the evolutionary thing.
Yeah, a
When
lot
you
of big
do that
ideas.
and you obscure it in large numbers, it starts to be a little bit convincing, because you're like, that's such a big number,
Yeah,
I
it's-
can't figure that one out.
Right. It's impressive.
Yeah, it's really impressive.
And that's a form of bullying, actually.
Yeah.
It really, it's intellectual bullying. What you do is you
yeah.
overload the senses with more data than anyone would be able to process at any
'cause
given time.
How can anybody imagine
Right.
4.6 million or billion
Billion.
years ago kind of thing, and what's happened? That's mind-boggling.
Well, not
for
just
Pete's sake.
Not just that. You can, by doing so, you can actually weave into the matrix all kinds of facts and suppositions.
Yeah, supposedly.
So yeah,
Or if you give it enough time, that Twinkie will evolve into an elephant.
do we not see
kind of thing.
exactly? Do we not see the same old lies, though? The same old recipe that the devil has always used.
Right.
He takes some truths,
Right. Some
weaves
pieces
them,
of stuff.
weaves them in with lies, and then
Yeah.
he corrupts the whole thing by doing so. And so, as Christians, are we supposed to reject all of this? No, absolutely not. You're going to be surprised today,
Right.
because I happen to be one Christian who happens to believe that many of those facts that you just said are absolutely true. You don't
Okay,
have to,
all
as a
right.
Christian, reject everything that science says about these things.
Right, absolutely. I'm with you. I'm a scientist. I'm in that camp. I I'm not sure what to think about certain things, so I'm going to be honest.
Right.
At the same time, I think that we have to really find the right balance here.
That's right.
To move forward with what God wants us to.
That's right.
And I
Finding
think
the
that we're
finding
gonna
the
get to
truth,
that.
finding the elements of truth within that, and extracting those things so that we can at least make competent suppositions.
Right.
So that our hypotheses are at least salient. The first thing as a Christian we need to establish, however, is
Yeah.
something that may seem blatantly obvious, but it must be established, and that is
Okay.
the God we serve is bigger than time and space.
Ah, yes.
He does not.
He's outside.
He's outside of this.
We're in
whole
a
thing.
snow globe.
You know, we can't imagine
Right,
a
so-
being for whom 56 million years or 65 million years is just a few days and a walk in the park.
Right.
We serve a God, however, for whom that is a reality. The Bible says that 1,000
Absolutely.
years is like a day for him.
Right.
I mean, that was given to us as,
That's the only way that we can understand
Right.
what no time is like. God is outside of time.
right.
So it's not even days and years and thousands or whatever. It's the absence of time, and God is in that realm.
That's right. So as a Christian, I don't have a problem with the fact that dinosaurs existed 65 million years ago. I have no
Sure.
problem with
Okay.
the Earth being 5.6 billion years old, if it is.
Right.
It
Okay.
may be older than that, for all
Right.
we know.
Right.
Okay. The point is that our God is huge. He's big.
God
We
is
cannot
huge.
put him in a box, and we fail
Right.
every time we try to do so.
Right. That kind of thing is nothing to him in time frames. For us, it gets so big, it almost creates a bigger God in our mind than the God we serve that created time.
But you can't do that. That's one thing you can't do. God
can't. You
God
can't go there.
God's challenging him because challenging us because we can't make him big enough.
Right.
We think we have him big enough. He's like, bring it, bring it,
Right.
bring it. God is
Right.
bigger than we can imagine. The human mind cannot grasp how huge, how wonderful, how majestic he is.
Right.
And this is the one who created
do.
us. We are his offspring.
We are his offspring. I think that gets into the creation discussion real quick. So we have the creation camp, individuals that believe the earth was created in 6 days, 6,000 years ago. And then we have the scriptures in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. And it says, "And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And then God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light." And then
Right.
boom, now we have the divergence that we're seeing here from creationists, 6,000 years, that God created the earth in 6 days, and then you got the evolutionists. So here are the two camps we're going to focus in on, because I think for most of us, those are the two camps we're constantly faced with. And if we don't process this in a way, it will hurt our witness and our testimony.
Right.
And in some cases, we could just look like blithering idiots who do the the see no monkey thing.
Right.
know?
That's the problem.
Uh-huh.
We have to be very, very cautious on how we frame this argument because
Yeah.
one of the worst things we could do is ignore it. Ignoring it is not an option.
yeah, that's
It-
not an
it's
option.
there. There are
Right.
things about this earth that we cannot explain.
Right.
And if you try to ignore them, then you get into big problems. And you were talking about Genesis 1:1 and 1:2. Okay, in Genesis 1:1, it says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. All right.
Right, okay.
Then it goes into the verse that you read.
Right. Verse 2.
There's a cutoff there. There's a line of demarcation there.
He has a period, yeah.
There's a period there. And so it would be very, very plausible for the eternal God, for whom time and space has absolutely no restrictions,
Right.
to insert billions of years between those two sentences.
Right.
And that's where those of us who accept the fact that the earth is in fact billions of years old and yet accept the perfect creation story with absolute certainty, they're
Absolutely.
because the book of Genesis, as you study the Bible, it does not even attempt to make a case that it's given you every little detail.
Right, absolutely.
Right. But as you read through God's word, you may go through 50 years in the discourse of 2 verses.
Right.
Yeah, it happens where from chapter to chapter you got hundreds of years going by. Around.
Yeah, there is no temporal purpose behind the actual alignment of the scriptures.
Right. The Word of God does not even try to state the case that it's giving you every little thought in detail.
Right.
So how much more so for the creation of the world? There are things that happen within the sphere of His creative process that go beyond our comprehension, far less our timelines.
Right, absolutely.
So could all of this that we're talking about, this prehistoric time with all the dinosaurs and all the all the critters that came before it, could have it happened between 1:1 and 1:2? Absolutely.
Possibly.
And
You're
it
right.
takes no more faith
Okay.
to believe
I'm
that
with you.
than it takes to believe that a big bang came out of nowhere for no reason with nothing around it and boom, created everything just randomly.
Right. That the universe created itself because it had to.
It had to. I mean, come
Right.
on.
So that's a big leap,
We-
too,
we-
for evolutionists,
oh,
right?
it takes the very same grain of faith. The
Yeah.
people who believe in that nonsense,
Even more, possibly. I
more,
think.
exactly. Because, come on, causality. Causality wrecks that argument.
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
nothing comes from nothing. And that is a scientific fact.
Right.
And yet scientists all over the world bow down to this stupid notion that from nothing, which is in itself a ridiculous notion,
Right.
that there was nothing, and then all of a sudden nothing basically exploded somehow, created all the universes and all the little planets that go around there, and all the suns and the stars. Happen to have one that we know of, that we live on, that's just the exact right space from the sun, neither
Right.
too far nor too close to it, so that
Right.
we don't burn up or freeze. And then on that thing, then suddenly amoebas spring into fish that crawl up on land, and from that we somehow become apes that become humans. It's like there's a whole series, a line of ridiculous notions that you have to literally throw your common sense down and trample it.
Well, they are huge leaps of faith in science that go from one leap of faith to the next one, piecing together a tapestry of hopeful things.
Yes.
For the whole thing of developing a theory that would explain something that we as humans are not capable of understanding.
Right. And so with all that in mind,
Mm-hmm.
do I have a problem with thinking that between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2 there could have been billions of years wherein
Okay.
God created different dispensations of this earth that did have 5 or 6 mass extinction events that the world has scarring
Okay.
to prove?
All right. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
that,
Well, we
that-
got and we can't dismiss or ignore that or put our head in the proverbial sand as Christians because there is evidence out there.
Yeah.
And I think that, it starts with going, okay, scientist, you've got some pretty good arguments and, hey, we need to process that, unpack that. Christians,
leave the lies at the door though.
oh yeah, leave the lie. Yeah, leave the deception, the lies, or at least admit the fact that you're piecing together very small pieces, pieces of a 1,000-piece puzzle,
Right.
and then you're feeling like you can recreate a portrait from 5 pieces or 10 pieces,
Right.
And so we're going to look at that a little closer too. I think with the creation account, to your point, because I know right now we probably have some listeners and viewers kind of scratching their head a little bit. We're going to point back to Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. The whole thing is that the earth was without form and void, and the darkness was over the deep and the spirit. So before light was created and before there was the account of creation, which is specifically focusing on the creation of man and life as we know it now, something's happening there.
All right, think
Don't
about-
know what's happening, but something's happened before that because the scripture indicates that.
But you have to logically look at that again. Just go with me just for a second here.
I'm with you.
Okay. Verse 2.
Okay.
The Spirit was hovering over the water,
Okay.
and the earth was without form.
Gotcha.
Where did it come from? 2 picks up a story, a narrative.
Mm-hmm.
There was stuff there already.
That's right. Well, and the account of creation day by day was about living things.
That's right.
And we know that there is some disparities between timelines and things like that and what's going on. The fact is that he did not create the universe the same time he created everything else.
No.
Because clearly there's something telling us here. And I don't know how that works, and I'm not acting like that. At the same time, I'm going, we have to, as Christians, admit the fact of, oh, this is interesting. What does it mean? Ooh, it could mean a lot more than just the fact that everything was created at the time the earth was created.
That's right. Well, it didn't say that, and the Spirit of God took up matter and formed the globe that we
Right.
know as Earth.
A rock.
It was there already.
Yeah,
And
clearly from
water
the scripture,
was on
yeah.
it.
Uh-huh.
Water was covering the face of it.
Water was already on it. The water of the deep, so it wasn't just a couple of trickles.
No, it was not. It was
Yeah,
covered with it, and
absolutely.
by the way, it was frozen. And so it's that therein lies
Okay,
the secrets
ice age.
of your
Okay,
ice age.
I'm following you. There's ice ages, and
That's right.
those were real. Those happened.
That's water.
But those are tracked back to pretty old timelines as well. But
That's right.
certainly beyond creation by scientists.
We don't have to deny things like the ice age.
Yeah.
because because the Bible says that the water covered the face of the deep. Okay, but we don't know if the Earth doesn't have an atmosphere yet.
Mm-hmm.
If the Earth doesn't have the things that hold us together and hold heat in and help us to have our seasons like God created in the days to follow.
Yeah.
the natural state of that water is going to be frozen.
Absolutely. Well, and that is the whole thing. We don't know what the state of the atmosphere or anything was beyond our experience within recorded history.
Right.
And we as humans, and even
Scientists don't know either.
scientists don't know either. And me being in the sciences and being a scientist for most of my career, you never make assumptions that you can't validate through observation.
Right.
Now, you can make guesses or theories
Right.
or hypotheticals, and that's perfectly fine. We're all allowed to do that.
That's right. So what I'm
Right.
saying is by faith.
And I think that is kind of how we lead into this. So we're going to talk first and outline creation, all right? And so there's a group that have done a pretty good job of this. I'm not saying I agree with everything there either, but I appreciate their effort. And there is the Creation Museum in Petersburg, Kentucky. And they bring a lot of compelling ideas, but they are literal Bible individuals.
That's
and
fine.
what they've done around the museum is they have tried to explain how the Bible is completely accurate down to the detail. And they give a lot of ideas that, are guesses as well.
Right,
So
right.
we need to absolutely just realize the fact of the Bible's silent on some of this,
yeah. You
how
set-
things happened. All
You
right.
set me up on this one.
Well, hey,
Yeah, I've been
run
there.
with it then.
I've been there. I mean, it's
Oh, yeah.
it's a very nice place. It's lovely. It really is. I respect Dr. Ham. I appreciate the efforts. I really do.
Yeah.
However, there are so many things, and there were so many presumptions made in that place.
Yeah,
And-
there
and-
were. I mean, there were some things that I liked. I thought were good. I went, oh, well, you've got some evidence for that. We don't know if that's the way that aligns here, but
But the fact that they made it with such a certainty that there were some very non-factual things, and some of them are to a cringeworthy level.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was, there was a lot of error in their
Yeah.
stuff. To purport that the world is only as old as the creation of humans is a grave error.
Yeah.
To state that this world was created 6,000 years ago and somehow dinosaurs and humans coexisted on the planet at the same time.
yeah, struggling with that one.
Now, I'm struggling with that one in many ways. First of all, it makes us look stupid. Secondly, because science tells us absolutely that did not happen.
Yeah.
And secondly, it's not in the Word of God.
Yeah.
So this is a Christian organization that's purporting things that is nowhere in the Bible.
Well,
it has no basis
yeah.
on Scripture whatsoever. The Adam wasn't running from T-Rex.
Right.
Or any other
Well, that's
dino.
That's one big barbecue wing from a T-Rex. So I'm telling you
Oh,
there.
yeah, little dainty snack. If that had happened, I'm absolutely certain that the Lord would have mentioned it because He mentions other miraculous things in the Bible.
Okay.
Those things are all hinted there, and you can find evidence for them in the Bible. I do not.
It does the same thing science does. It goes, we have pieces of evidence, and they attempt to fill in blanks with best guesses.
Right.
Hopeful thought. And so I think that if we're going to have the discussion and be reasonable, we need to be able to have the balanced view of science doing that
Right.
and Christian theorists doing it.
Wrong is wrong. I mean, two wrongs don't make a right.
Yeah.
You can't do on the Christian side what the enemy is doing on their side and expect it to turn out any better.
Right.
We either have truth and facts, and if we don't, then we make speculations, but we don't say that
Yeah.
this is exactly how it happened with no evidence and no proof
Right,
whatsoever.
right. I think going out and say this could or would or
Right.
maybe
That's fine.
I'm totally fine with that. So spoiler alert, go check out the Ark.
Yeah.
And then when you do, let me know what Dr. Ham has proposed how dinosaurs were handled with that. So go and do that. And so we're telling you guys, go check it out,
Yeah,
but
it's
keep your mind open to the fact that God has a huge history, even within our history, and He's outside the snow globe. He's outside of creation. He's outside of time. And He's put all this together, and He's given us what we need to understand that He's God, He's the creator, we're not God, and we don't create.
Right. And some things have to be taken on faith.
Absolutely.
Without faith, it is impossible to please the Lord, and He purposely made it so that there would be things. He gave us bits and pieces of the puzzle, but there are things we have to take on faith. And when you try to prove things that are only meant to be taken by faith,
Yeah.
even on the scientific side, as we've already established, they have a lot of things they can't prove,
Oh, man. Yeah.
and
yeah.
a ton of things they can't prove, and they
Right.
make fools of themselves. Making such assertions, saying that they can when they most certainly can't.
Right.
The difference is they have the media on their side, they have academia on their
Secular
side.
world. Yeah,
Right.
they have the unbelieving fallen creation that is all searching for the meaning of who we are as something we're not.
Right. They're trying to fill that God-shaped hole inside them with anything
Absolutely.
that will fit, and it won't.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a good kind of segue into the next part here. And we're just going to kind of look at things that we all have run into. And that's the goal of this, is we know that we're believers in an information age, the increase of knowledge. We're faced with things that we don't always have answers to, and instead of sticking our head in the sand and covering our eyes and stammering and bammering and looking silly, we need to process this and figure out where we're going with it. But the first thing we're going to talk about is the fossil records, and scientists bring it up. And now evolutionists and creationists all agree that the fossil records are incomplete, but they also agree that there are fossils of dinosaurs and creatures that have gone extinct. In fact, only about 2% of the creatures that live today are actually the ones that they believe throughout time, but they've only found about 2% of all the different fossils. So,
Right.
so we've got something going on here about the fossil record that, because they're piecing together the story with only about 2% of all the creatures that have ever lived, or only a few of them have actually been fossilized.
Right.
Imagine trying to recreate Beethoven's symphony with only about 2 or 3 notes.
Right.
It can't happen, right? But science, what their goal is, science's goal is create a theory and create a story. And so that's what they do.
And the motivation in many cases is to get that funding.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, that's you trace it down to the root of the things. A scientist is going to, the scientist most of the time is going to come to the conclusion that their funders have
Right.
sent them off to find.
Right.
And unfortunately, it's not supposed to be that way. And and I'm not speaking for every scientist. I'm sure there are some pure ones out there.
Yeah. I think there are ones out there that just
that don't do that.
That they're just searching the best they can and proposing new ideas, because that's how science works. The next idea came from the previous idea, and science is constantly changing
That's
and
right.
evolving itself. So there is an evolutionary theory. It's with science,
Yeah, right.
not with mankind or creation.
Now, on the Christian side, however, there is something that we need to pause and consider.
Okay.
A question is not invalidated because it has no obvious answer.
All right, that was good.
All right.
I'm with you.
It's absolutely certain because there are things that have happened that we can't explain.
Correct.
And the
It
fossils
can be answered.
That's right. Dinos are real. The bones are real.
Yeah.
They're there.
They're there.
I'm sorry. They didn't make that up. They're being found all over the world.
Right.
In all kinds of various states and stuff. And so, okay. Or the names, the names are kind of funny. I don't know where they come up with the names, but
Yeah.
okay,
well,
fine.
Well, they were creative with that, that's for sure. Well, and so are the bones that they found that are, what they call hominids, right?
Right.
Human-like looking like, but they are not the creation God made in His image.
Right.
And so those are real. They're found. They're right in front of folks and
The evidence
scientists.
the evidence is there.
Absolutely.
And as a Christian, you don't have to ignore that. In fact, I would suggest not doing so because
Right.
the person who is looking at that evidence next to you is eventually going to need Jesus Christ in their life.
That's right.
And if you are allowing even good-hearted, if there is any such thing as a good-hearted untruth or lie,
Mm-hmm.
if you're allowing even that kind of a seed into your life, and you're allowing that kind of untruth to weight how you feel about
Sure.
things,
Okay.
that lost person beside you who is saying, okay, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't compute at
Yeah,
all.
right.
You're doing them a great disservice.
Right. Those Christians, they don't even use their brain. They must unpack their brain at the cross, and they're not thinking about anything.
Right. In other words, God gave us a brain for a reason.
Right.
It's there to use, and we don't have to throw out all evidence just because it doesn't necessarily fit with something that we understand. And so
Right.
going
Good
back to the
point.
thing, a question is not invalidated because there is no obvious answer. Another good example of that is the megalithic stones that are being found all over the
All
world
over the
right
globe.
now.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking 1,200 ton stones that are cut to such a precision that it
Right.
would need a diamond, computer-driven diamond blade to even cut it. They're a hardness of stone that
Right.
that the bronze chisels of the day would not have
Yeah.
even made a dent on it. It would have been like trying to use a plastic knife.
Right. And some of those date back even before the invention of the wheel.
Oh, exactly.
So,
Some of these
so
things,
what's going on here, right?
right? And so the point being is that every society that we still have records of They all tell about one event that happened, and that was the flood of Noah. Every single one of them.
Okay. All right.
They talk about this great deluge that came upon the earth, and so the Bible's not alone in that account.
Right.
All
The
right?
Epic of Gilgamesh is one from the Mesopotamian.
As a result, we are really, really short on details of what the world looked like and what was happening for the first 1,350 years, essentially, basically somewhere around there,
Right.
from Adam to Noah. So, because we have so few details of that time, and there are some records, the Book of Enoch and some of the accounts in the Bible that give us some hints and clues of things that went on. We have to be measured in our approach to this,
Right.
and understand that there are some things we can't explain. And because Christians are not going into detail, because we're punting this down the road, we're giving it to someone else.
We're afraid to have the conversation.
Right. We're afraid because of that. The enemy is taking this field.
Right.
And as a result, there are more people, like in Great Britain, this came out about 4 or 5 years ago, that statistically there's more people in Great Britain who believe in aliens than in God.
Oh my gosh.
So that was a fact at that time. I don't know how it is right now, but I can't imagine it being any better. But the fact is that that people believe that aliens planted us here. They're seeing those 1,200-ton stones there that we don't even have the technology to do and put together, that are put together with no mortar, and you can't even get a human hair between them. They're that precise.
Yeah.
Angles and cuts and drill holes. 5,000 years ago, Aboriginals did that. It's because
Pretty big stretch, yeah.
not just a big stretch. It's ridiculous, and yet just because we don't know the exact answer doesn't invalidate the question. The question's there,
Right.
and Christianity needs to do a better job of stepping up and taking a logical and measured approach at answering these things.
Right.
Because in some cases, salvation does ride on the line. It may be point A to point Z being the cross, but somewhere down the line, little steps at a time, this person you may be making a decision in the valley of decision one of these days. And if we ignore every question like this, we're doing them a great disservice.
And it's okay to have conversations about questions we can't answer. 'Cause
Right.
Not having the answer doesn't invalidate the question.
Right.
So, all right, we're going to move on to kind of the next thing I think that folks run into, and that's the geological records. Okay, that's the sediment. It's the earth over time that has settled. And there is a consistent observation across the globe in certain places, but enough so it's not like every inch of the globe has the exact geological record.
Right.
But there's enough observation that shows that something went on for a long period of time. Now, evolutionists think that over 4.5 billion years, the Earth's sediment and disasters and all kinds of things took place, settled down, and that's how you got the geological record. Creationist, the Creation Museum in particular, notes that the 6,000 year creation and the global flood is what created that geological record. So here we have some evidence here from both sides, and that is real. So what do we do with the geological records? We have in the geological records fossils. Only a small percentage of the fossils, or only about 2% of all the life that ever lived, were going to be captured in fossil records.
Right.
And we've only found a smaller part of that. And so there's a lot of guesswork going on here. But so the fossil record, or the actual geological record, is something that is important for folks to realize is out there and it's real. We don't know how long it took to develop. Ken Ham's proposal, it was a flood, was very interesting. I'm not sure I'm there because, you don't have enough time to run a test to make sure that that's how it happens consistently. But we do believe as Christians in a global flood. So,
Yeah,
we got some things happening there.
Yeah, and it wasn't just recorded in the Bible, as we stated. There are several historical accounts that actually bring that in there. There should be as much consternation on the scientific side as there is on the Christian side, and I don't believe we should be bullied in this conversation at all.
Right.
I think any Christian, educate yourself, and that's the whole problem.
Right.
You can't go to the Creation Museum, memorize the placards there, and go and argue with a scientist on
No,
this
you
matter.
can't.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Right. You educate yourself and understand that, there's some good things out there, and don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of this argument.
Right.
Because you serve the creator, the one who created all this. He's not just with you, he is in you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Jesus Christ created all of this thing. Father God created everything here through his son, Jesus Christ, when he was the word of the Lord. And I'm telling you right now, he will guide you. Don't be afraid of this conversation. Educate yourself, then go in.
Yeah.
Bear in mind that they require more faith to believe what they believe than we
Absolutely.
do ours. It's like you mentioned the evolutionists. Okay, so okay, how? Ask them how.
Right.
Okay, so that critter came out of the ocean with fins and somehow ended up with arms. How? And why didn't all of them have it? Where's my fourth arm?
Right.
I could use that.
Yeah.
Where's the third eyeball?
There's
we
some
all
pretty
need?
big leaps of faith. Just because a bird has similar two-boned forearms that we have doesn't mean that we evolved from them. They're making some pretty big leaps and assumptions in faith there as well. So,
They are, and it's not all false, but they are making the same kind of leaps of faith that we
Right.
are, and
Right.
so don't be cowed by it.
no, and then don't go in and try to think you're a scientist either. We're going to get to that point here in just a minute on what's a good way to kind of manage this. What's a good way to approach it? Educate yourself. Understand where they're coming from. Understand that we don't have answers, and then we'll kind of process that. Now,
Right.
our next thing we want to just talk about real quick is radioactive dating, carbon dating. And so that's one thing that's out there that science really leans into that proves that they can date or radioactive date geological formations.
Right.
And then they can also do it with actual living creatures. So how that works, right? So with living creatures in particular, they're breathing, they're bringing in carbon. It's carbon-12, it's stable. And then they're also bringing in carbon-14. Carbon-14 is unstable and eventually degradates over time. And what they do is they can take a shirt or a person's bones or whatever, and they can determine the ratio between the two. Well, the original ratio or amount in that particular living matter depended on the amount of carbon in the atmosphere that they took in through breathing. And the reason why I'm bringing this is because that seems very reasonable.
Right.
That makes sense to me.
Right.
Whoa, we have kind of a big hole here we need to discuss. And so in researching this, and I'm just going to kind of read from the article itself real fast, is that here in 2016, the Smithsonian Institute of Science published an article that talks about the fact that we have so much carbon emissions going into the atmosphere right now that if we were to get carbon dated by scientists in the future, we would not be distinguishable between now and a prehistoric item that's being dated millions and millions of years ago. So here is the point of radiocarbon dating does have some issues. I'm not saying it's completely false because I don't know that. I'm not going to leap to those assumptions. But they've also found errors with lava rocks in New Zealand, and this was quite a while ago. And there was a volcano that kept erupting over time. And what they did is they went ahead and they dated the lava rocks. And those lava rocks showed millions, 500,000 years, and it only been 20 years, 50 years. And it's because we don't understand the formation. And in that case there, it's actually the study of uranium that degrades down to lead. But we don't. So we're seeing some issues here that have problems. And so it's okay to understand that and go, oh, all right, we don't know what the Earth was like 6,000 years ago. So
Right.
maybe Ken Ham is right. Or we don't know what the atmosphere was like 1,000,000 years ago or
Right.
10,000 years ago to validate radiocarbon dating and have it be the absolute answer to all the questions out there.
We get into agendas, unfortunately, on both
Yeah.
sides. There's no there. We're looking for purity where purity is not.
Okay, good point.
The motivations are there
Okay.
in a lot of people who have an agenda
Yeah.
to prove something. Okay, I happen to personally believe that most of carbon dating is probably right. I think it's a good scientific thing. It like you described, it seems to have a really good basis. I don't think it's perfect.
Right. I don't either.
There was one. I don't. It might have been Ken Ham or somebody else, but there was one researcher who used to take around an item with him in lectures.
Okay.
And he would say, this thing on the desk here that I'm about to unveil was dated
All
to be
right.
millions of years old. He took it off, and it was a cowboy hat. They had gotten out into the field somewhere, it had fossilized.
Okay.
When they carbon dated it, the thing was millions of years old.
All right. I didn't hear this before.
Well, this is something I heard even when I was a kid. So whether that was Dr. Ham or somebody else, it was someone who was in that field who was basically using it as a check to say, okay, it's not as perfect as people think it is. It does have some flaws in
Okay.
it. But even if it was a flawless science, there are still a great deal of people on the planet who have an agenda, and they're using this carbon emission thing
Okay.
as a
All right.
club.
Greenhouse gas.
Right, as a club to basically get what they want. They're going for a globalist society. They're going for all kinds of things that ride into that. and when I was a kid, at least, in the 70s, we were going to have an ice
Ooh,
age.
you're old.
Yeah, yeah, I'm old, but we were on our way to an ice age in the 70s. That was going to happen. There was a great big article about it and everything. Oh, everybody be afraid. It's going to be the ice age. It's going to be cold, 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 cold. Then somewhere about 20 years later, we transitioned somehow into its global warming.
Global warming.
Right. And so
Right.
we're going to get warm, 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 warm. And of course, once again, the Earth did not cooperate. The Earth didn't cooperate for like 21, 22 years.
Yeah.
The temperature didn't raise. It didn't rise. So what happened was they decided to get really clever with it and just call it climate change.
Ah, I see.
So now every time the temperature changes one way or the other, buddy, it's climate change. It's like, and it has an agenda
The
behind
fear,
it.
yeah, it certainly does.
And what happens is, again, the media covers for everything, that we don't hear about the things that do make it out. Thankfully, we do have some watchmen on the walls here and there who find these things and publish them. But like the main group of scientists that were in the UK who initially came up with the whole climate change, computer models back in the 90s, they have been recently outed as having falsified much of their data. It's a lucrative business to have fat cats come to your scientific exposés and throw a lot of cash into your thing.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And they know, and the scientists who are succumbing to this,
Right.
not all of them, but the ones who succumb to this, they know what it takes to butter that bread. And so we have to be measured on this. We have to go into it with our eyes wide open and understand that, carbon dating may be a mostly substantial science, but we have to watch.
At what point is it faulty?
Yeah,
Or at what
where's
point
the
are the people faulty?
right? Where's the weaving of the wickedness?
Yeah.
Where are the truths being weaved together with lies?
Yeah, and we don't expect anybody out there to figure that out. Of course, nobody, not even myself, who's been in the sciences, health sciences for all my career, can't answer some of these questions. And we don't expect for you either. These super science technologies and information. So what do you do as a Christ follower? So, and even as a person in the Christian faith, we do have our biases, right? Based on our worldview. So do the scientists, right? Not everyone's crooked, but not everyone's right.
Right.
There are no absolutes. And it's okay to go ahead as a believer and recognize that we don't have the answers, that we don't know what's going on.
Well, we don't have the specific answers. We have the bigger answer, though.
Well.
We know, in our hearts at least, we know that God Almighty is the creator and the originator of all this.
Absolutely.
We know that
And that is one of the big challenges from science. And so,
right.
yes, we can, because we can substantiate that through our testimony and through our experiences with a living God in us. Now, science can't validate that with anything, and that's the challenge with this.
I don't think the whole point, though, is to go on guard with them with their science.
No,
With
I don't think
science.
so either.
What I think it is, I think the overarching goal is to establish the fact that both sides are using faith.
Mm-hmm.
If you can actually progress in the argument with someone to the point where you can tell them, you can illustrate to them that, hey, wait a minute, on your side, you are using just as much faith as I am.
Right.
Then you remove it from the classroom scenario where it's like, okay, you can see that you're using a lot of faith and I'm using just as much faith or more, or just as much faith on my side. Then, okay, now let's talk about what really happened. What does your heart say? What is the evidence that we have in front of us?
Right. And then where do you stake your flag? I think you bring up a very important point about the conflicting evidence on both sides, or the missing, and the faith required for both sides of that.
Well, yeah.
And I think that as
But we're purposeful in our faith.
well, we would like to think so.
Well, yeah. I mean, we go by the Word of God and what the Word of God tells us. The Word of God tells us that God created the heavens and the earth, and He took 6 days to create everything else.
Right.
That is our evidence. That is our Word. That is,
Right.
we can do that.
Right.
We don't purport ridiculous things like that. Something sprang from nothing, and explosions happened that caused fish to grow arms and become apes. And the logical mind is what it is, and if you're arguing for that, it's I believe it the balance is on our side big time.
Yeah, but I think for folks, as we kind of tell them to move forward with it, we need to remember that if somebody doesn't have the Spirit of God and they don't believe in Jesus, believing in a God that created everything is probably just as preposterous as an evolution from a Twinkie to an elephant. And that's kind of what they propose. And I'm kind of saying that tongue in cheek, but typically that's what they say in evolution. I could, put a turtle here, and 10 million years later, it will be an elevated life form. And I just don't think that that's the design of it. I don't think that happens. It's never been observed. And linking pieces together, that's only about 10 pieces of a 10,000 piece puzzle, and then saying we know exactly what the picture says is really quite unscientific.
Right.
You know,
But we see miracles in our lives every day.
absolutely.
You
There's
know,
your testimony.
I've seen the drunk who beat his wife for 40 years go to the altar and become a transformed man.
There you go.
I've seen. We've all seen these things. We
Right.
see the work of
The
God in our
testimony
lives.
of God you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you can argue from that standpoint, when it's like, you know what? Yeah, we can't answer everything that happened, and from the beginning of time, we can't fill in and God didn't mean for us to be able to do so, by the way.
Right.
But we've seen miracles in our own lives. I know how God has transformed me.
There you go. The testimony. Science will argue science. We don't need to even argue science. What we need to do as believers, and we encourage everyone out there, is be okay with the true testimony of you're not a scientist and you can't be okay with go, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know why science says this and the Bible says that. But what they can't take from any of us is our testimony about a living God
That's right.
and the active relationship we have with Jesus, and the fact of we tell them that is why I believe what I believe, because you believe in dead things. I believe in a living thing
That's
and a
right.
living person, and they can't take that, and they can't convince us of anything else but our testimony, and we should never let them do that because of sciences. Because to be honest with you, most folks out there are not going to be able to have a discussion about sciences and have it even make any sense, but they can all have a strong conversation about their testimony about Jesus and what he did and the fact that he's alive and the fact that he's active, and then just let it all go.
Right.
We don't have to be scientists, right?
You don't have to be, but you don't have to be afraid of it either. Every time the Bible is put to the test and in the sciences, every single time it vindicates itself. Right,
Yes.
right now, recently, in fact,
Science hasn't proven the Bible wrong at any point.
absolutely not,
No.
and nor is it going to. Right now, recently they've in the last. I have the pictures at home where they found remnants of chariots and chariot wheels in the Red Sea,
In the Red
exactly
Sea,
right
sure.
where they said that the children of Israel crossed. Science has proven out that there's actually evidence that something big happened there. That's
Right.
very consistent with
Sound-
the biblical narrative.
That's exactly it.
That
Yeah,
there
absolutely.
are chariots where there shouldn't be any chariots.
Right, and chariots of a certain kind
Of a certain
that
kind.
indicate chariots from actual royalty,
Actual
battle,
royalty, the
battle,
gold
yeah.
ones, yes.
Yeah. So absolutely.
They're there. The
Yeah.
evidence is there. We're finding things. God is actually he's playing with them. It's like, okay, you want to pull science on me? We'll pull science out. You know, I happen to love the works of Ron Wyatt,
Yeah.
and the man did some incredible work in his time here, and I hope then and more of his work's going to be brought to the forefront as the years go on. But he discovered a lot of things,
Yeah.
and there are people who have a godly heart who are being led all over the world to actually engage in this very important argument of the sciences, because it's a battlefield that we've been whipped on. Frankly, we Christians have been whipped on this battlefield for far too long, and it's time that we engage it with the heart of reaching
right.
people for Christ.
Absolutely.
Because in the end, everybody you're looking at across the table, you know, they may be calling you every name under the book, and they may think you're a blithering idiot because
Right.
you happen to believe in God instead of evolution.
Yeah.
But you know, God sees in them that little baby He wants to save.
Yeah.
He sees in them that little one that is in danger of the fires of hell.
Right.
And if we can talk dinosaurs with them, and then
Yeah.
take a little tiny step toward leading them to Christ, yeah,
Right.
let's go for it.
Certainly don't shut down the conversation. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull into recapping a little bit of what we've talked about. And the first thing is dinosaurs exist.
Yes.
There may be a lot of unanswered questions. Dinosaurs exist, and there's a lot of information out there that is real. And we just need to be okay with there's
Right.
unanswered questions. All questions are valid,
And they
even
did
if
not
they
ex-
can't be answered.
Right. And they did not exist with man, because if they did, they would
Right.
have eaten man.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
Bible would have told us that.
Right.
If the Bible told us about giants who had 6 fingers and 6 toes and all that
Okay.
kind of stuff,
All right.
if it told us those kinds of things, it would have told us if there were dinosaurs there. The omission is salient.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay.
dinosaurs existed.
We need to be okay with that. We need to just realize that all the unanswered questions need to move us into a stronger faith with Jesus and a deeper trust with God, because we don't need answers from science and convince them of our truths. We just need to be able to provide the testimony of Jesus, of what we know about the living. Don't let evolutionary science that changes constantly affect the platform that you have about an eternal relationship with Jesus that never changes.
Right.
Sciences are what they are. They continually change based on the last discovery, experiment, or whatever. And so what they know now about the earth, the universe, or whatever is an evolution of what they built off of previously. And that's
Right.
okay. That's the way those things work. You're not building on Jesus.
No.
He is who he is. God is who he is. Eternal. It's stable.
God
It
never
is an
changes.
absolute. Absolutely. And what saves people, quite honestly, is a faith in a living Jesus.
Faith.
And not faith in fossils of dead things a long time ago. And we need to realize and be comfortable with that.
Right.
You don't need to know more about science to build your faith in the cross. It's good to be conversant about it. It's good to be able to sit down and not be afraid of it.
Right.
But those of you who are kind of nervous about it, because some will be a little nervous about sciences, not everyone is a scientist.
No.
I engage in those pretty, gregariously. Not everyone has to, but you can just tell the scientists that there's a lot of unanswered questions in the Bible and about everything, but for an absolute certainty, Jesus died, he rose again, he's alive, and you engage him and God in many different ways, and that's where you stake your faith. And, the scientists will stake their flag
Right.
somewhere else. Hopefully that changes. Don't get worried about it.
Right, but because sooner or later, everybody comes to that life crisis where they're going to need something. We all do, and God is timely.
Right. And we need to be aware of that interactions with scientists and with science out there. But we know modern day Christians all wrestle with a lot of these things, so that's why we brought this topic up. We do want to invite you to come visit us at our website at thetruthandthelife.com. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to having another discussion with you on the way.
Things time will tell, we might never know. We'll be
To learn more about The Way, visit thetruthandthelife.com.
Send me your songs of tomorrow.